Last weekend I was on a mission. My mission was to find a good first-time mechanical watch, either automatic or manual wind, for somebody that has never owned a mechanical watch. My budget was around $100. That's what I wanted to use on this watch. I don't want this watch to be terribly expensive, but I don't want this to be a really cheap watch either. So $100 was my budget for this, and I was looking for a watch that preferably had a 20 millimeter lug to lug, so that if I buy this watch and I buy watches later, or like different watches later, the odds that a good watch that are very common, that are very sought after, that are pretty popular are going to be 20 millimeter bands. So that was my criteria going in here looking for this watch. Of course, it was not as easy as it seemed. Phoenix is a big city, has a lot of pawn shops, and it was harder than it seemed. I did find a watch. It's a vintage watch, and I thought this was going to be a good watch for somebody's first watch. It's a little delicate. It's a good practice watch. You're going to be changing bands, and you're going to be scratching your watch. I would never suggest to anybody to buy a brand new Rolex as their first watch, because there's kind of a little bit of a learning curve to mechanical watches. They're not the same as a quartz watch, so you get more involved with it. You start swapping bands. You start seeing this watch online and different forums, and you start liking different looks on this watch, and you can start changing bands. You're going to start doing a lot of different things with the watch that obviously much different than just a regular quartz watch that you could buy at any Walmart or any store. So there's more to it. You get more involved, and there's a little bit of a learning curve to owning a first mechanical watch. I do realize that the whole idea of just having a practice watch may seem pretty foolish to somebody. It may seem why would somebody want to spend money on a practice watch? It may be foolish for somebody, but if it's a gift, if you're gonna gift a watch to a minor or somebody that's starting in watches, or somebody that doesn't have a lot of experience, they may lose it, they may break it, they may not know how to take care of it. I do believe having a first-time mechanical watch is a good idea. Now, the watch that I did find, that I did get, these are other watches that we're going to talk about here in a couple of minutes, was this Weiler. This is a vintage Weiler watch, probably from the 70s. It's really nice. It's keeping great time. It was $100. Still have the tag on it. I did change the band on it, because I think this is a more appropriate band for the times and for the watch. Unfortunately, I did not find a 20 millimeter watch with a 20 millimeter watch band. That's what I was looking for originally in the pawn shops. And just to give you an example of what I was talking about, all these watches in this tray, everything from a Tag Carrera, a Wise, a Squale, except for this one. This is a Omega, but this is the only one here with an 18. Tudor Black Bay 58. This is a Porsche Design, an Omega Railmaster, a Doxa, a Seiko Land Turtle, and a Rolex Datejust. All these watches can share bands, except for this one. Of course, this one's not counted because this one's an 18. All these watches can share bands. I can swap all these bands around, and I can still keep on using the bands. Sometimes I like wearing even a diverse watch on a leather band. So that's why when I say finding a watch with a 20 millimeter lug width is always going to be a good idea, because once you start getting into different watches or a little bit better watches, you're gonna realize that that's a very common size for watch bands. Now, I didn't find one. I got this watch, and I thought it was a good watch. I thought it was a good practice watch. I think it is a good practice watch. I bought it at a pawn shop. They usually have like a 30-day money-back warranty. If it's not working, you can always return it, and that's usually a good deal. I think $100 is a good starting point. It's not trash. It's something that you're gonna save, because $100 is still quite a bit of money. So that's a good starting point. But if it does break, something happens to it, well, you will survive. Now, one of the things that we have to practice when we buy watches is changing watch bands, because that's something that we're going to do a lot, and inevitably we're going to scratch our watches quite a bit, especially when you're first learning. A lot of the bands they have a quick release, but not all. Like in this case, this watch doesn't have a quick release. So that's what I was hoping for, is a watch that had a 20 millimeter band. It's a good practice watch. You're not gonna walk in the shower with it, especially not this watch. There's watches that you can. You're gonna be more careful with it. You're gonna, when you walk next to a wall, you don't want to scratch it. So there's a little bit of learning with the watch. Now, I had bought this watch. The video was gonna be about this watch, and I thought it was a good idea, but as I got thinking, because I bought this watch a week ago. During the week, I kept on thinking, well, it's gonna be really difficult for somebody to go to a pawn shop and find a watch that's something like this, because I know brands. I know this has a good movement. This is a fantastic watch. This is a great watch. This is a great deal for $100. It's a great deal. I actually, just as a mention, I did find this really, really nice Nobile watch. I did a video on this watch. That's gonna be it's the previous video to this video. I found this really beautiful Nobile watch. This is a quartz. That's why the video is not about this watch. This is a quartz. I just wanted to mention at the same pawn shop where I found this watch, and I think that's pretty interesting. Now, I bought this watch. I had my daughter with me. We live in Tucson, and Phoenix is about an hour and a half drive from here, or almost 2 hours to the pawn shop. So at the end of the day, she was tired. She said, "Dad, can we stop at the mall?" So I said, you know what? She's 13. She's a teenager. She loves the mall, and it's like a big mall that we stopped at. And of course, we can stop at the mall. So we stopped at the mall. I was walking around a little bit bored. I'm not really into malls that much, but of course, I always gravitate towards wherever they sell watches or they fix watches or anything like that. And of course, they had a Dillard's. I walked in the Dillard's, and it turns out I found this watch. Now this watch I bought new at a mall, so you already know I overpaid for this watch. I paid $275 for this watch. Of course, it's a really nice Seiko. Even though originally the video was about this watch, a watch like this, I started thinking if it's gonna be your first watch, why not make it a watch like this watch? This watch was $275. Comes with this band, which is a 20 millimeter band. That it's actually a really nice band. Really, really nice for the price. Goes good on this watch. I personally, this has a blue dial with gilt colors on the numbers, so it's gold colored numbers or markers, and I just think it looks beautiful with this stitching and this band. So it's a Seiko SRP G39. And throughout the week, I realized I was going to make the video on the wrong watch, because these two watches are realistically only $100 apart. That's all. Just $100 apart for $100 more, because online it sells for about $200 right now. So even though I overpaid, I know that the true price on this watch is about $200 at this moment. So for $100 extra, this is a much better watch. This is a 39.4 millimeter watch. It's about 13 millimeters tall. It's got a 10 bar water rating, which is definitely going to be better than what this watch has. It's bead blasted. It's the colors are nice. It's more contemporary. It's much more of a watch than the other watch. Even though that Weidler is an amazing watch for somebody that knows watches like me. I know what kind of movements in that watch. That's a Swiss watch. I would still recommend somebody as their first watch this Seiko watch for sure. Like I've said before, I mean, I have other Seikos. The Seikos Presages are great watches. They're more expensive, and for my taste, at least for the way I see things, I would much rather wear this watch than any of these two, and I already own them. Now, as far as this watch, I have no issue putting this watch in my box in my collection, because even though there's some really, really nice watches in here, this watch goes great. I mean, I have no issue wearing this Omega one day and then wearing this watch the next day, because it's a really beautiful watch. It's a beautiful Seiko, and it's only $200. If you look at all these prices on these watches and you look at the price of this watch, that of course it does have a Hardlex crystal. It's not going to be a reflective coating on it. It's not a sapphire crystal. It's it's $200, so you're not gonna expect that quality of watches. But it's got the look. The movement is on par. I would say it's on par with a lot of the other movements. It may not have the specs on it as far as keeping time, but I know Seikos. I know these movements. You can use them for many, many years, and they'll be perfectly fine. So, in my advice, and this is only my personal opinion, I would say if somebody's gonna buy the first watch, these Seiko SRPGs are great. I did find another. There's a a whole bunch of line. These are actually Seiko 5, so it's an SRPG, and then depending on the number, there's a little bit of variance on them. Some of them for $200, some of them you could get on a metal band. I did not get the one on the metal band because this one had the gilt, so I like the gilt dial, I like the colors, so I stayed with this one. I really prefer leather bands, so I stayed with this band. It would be my opinion that this is a great watch for somebody's first watch, and this is a great, even though it could be somebody's first watch, this watch can still stay in a collection for a long time. Like I said before, I bought this watch even though I have other watches and I have many more other watches than that. This watch still stays in my collection because I think it's a beautiful watch. It just has a great look to it, and it's Seiko. Seikos are great watches. So, and that's my opinion. That's my video today, and I'll see you guys on the next video.